Hello. So I got a question about how to sync things to other things over MIDI, basically, using the old school MIDI. So we're going to talk about syncing the OB6 to the Grandmother, or actually other way around, Grandmother to the OB6. So in this instance, the OB6 is my master clock, and the Grandmother is going to sync to that. So first, one caveat. In the 80s and 90s, I remember the 90s, people would spend like hundreds of dollars on MIDI clocks, and sometimes even thousands of dollars, because this protocol is not super stable. And you're going to hear like there's some drift that happens, but this will get you like 90% of the way there. So that's my caveat. First of all, some housekeeping setup types of things you have to do if you want to make this happen. In the OB6, we have to go to the globals. We have to go to the MIDI clock, which is number 3. This has to say out. If it doesn't say out, you've got to hit your up or down here to make it say out. Okay? Once it says out, you have your clock here going. So that's good. I've got my arpeggiator turned on, so we're sending clock out of here now. Grandmother's a little tricky. You have to look at the manual. You have to look at the manual for any keyboard you own about this kind of stuff. So I've just got a MIDI 5-pin cable coming out of the back of the OB6, and it's going into the back of the Grandmother back there. So how do we make the Grandmother know that it's taking clock in? So we have to do hold, sync. We have to hold those down. Sync is now flashing. We're in a sort of a global menu mode. We push G sharp to go into clock and G to set it. So what that does is it says Grandmother's going to start and stop its clock based on what it's receiving. Then we push sync to get out of there. And you'll notice there's nothing flashing here on the arpeggiator anymore, or the sequencer on this side, because it's waiting for the clock from the outside. So what happens is when I start sending and I push play and hold, look, now we've got a rate. So that's really all that is to it. I'm using hold so I can kind of use one hand here. The cool thing about the Grandmother is that the rate knob becomes subdivisions of the clock that's coming out. So, you know. Okay, so that's all there is to it. That's really, every MIDI setup kind of works this way. And we got very lucky because there wasn't a lot of clock drift. Sometimes what you'll hear is like, the arpeggiator is going on one side and then the Grandmother's definitely drifting. It's not attacking at the same rate. So I started with like a dotted quarter. We went to more of an eighth note and then to a triplet, I think. So that's all there is to it. There's always going to be some aspect with MIDI equipment of clock out from whatever you want to be the main thing, and there's going to be an aspect of clock in on the thing you're trying to sync. And then it just becomes like, can you troubleshoot a little bit? I'll tell you what happens with my Grandmother. So when this clock starts to drift, I have to actually turn off the Grandmother and turn it back on. Because once it gets out, once it starts drifting, it's like you can never get it to go back. But off and back on works, kind of like the old IT setting. Did you try turning it off and back on? One other thing I've had to do if that doesn't work is I unplug the MIDI cable from the back of the Grandmother and then plug it back in. And, whatever electronically happens there, it starts to receive the clock in time again. So I hope this helps, and we'll see you on the next video. Please ask me questions, leave a comment, like and subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Thanks.